Good evening, and thank you for joining us at this February 13th regular meeting of the Lake Lure Town Council. I want to welcome you as on behalf of the council. I would ask everyone to please rise for our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Please bow your heads and let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings you've bestowed on our community. As we gather here in public service to our town and its citizens, we ask for your divine guidance and wisdom to help us govern effectively, to do what serves the greater good and best interest of our citizens, and to be good stewards and guardians of this beautiful place we call home. In your name we humbly ask these things. Amen. 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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, before we get started, I would just remind the public that we have a public comment sign-up sheet over here. If you wish to make some public comment a little later in the meeting on the agenda here, would you please be sure to sign up and be reminded your remarks will be limited. We limit them to 5 minutes, so try to get your presentation to be succinct. Okay, so let's begin with the agenda adoption.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of amendments. One is I'd like to add under the consent agenda a paper we were given for new business, professional services contract on the sewer manhole. I think that could easily be dispensed on the consent agenda. It's a funded project and it's self-explanatory. So I'd like to add that under consent agenda.
Okay.
Under consent agenda 7B, we have two budget amendments, 211 and 212. I'd like to take 212 off, and remove it from the consent agenda. There's a questionable item regarding that budget amendment. Under 7A, the meeting minutes for the December 21 special meeting, there's a simple amendment of where William Morgan, our town attorney, should have been added as present to it. Other than that, the minutes are fine, in my opinion. Okay. With that, I have no further recommendations for amending the agenda.
Okay. Where are we going to move item 212 to what topic?
Is that a new business item?
It would have to be new business. Thanks. We can make it G.
Okay.
9. G.
Well, if Sam has to be held up here for that, we should move it up to the top. Item A, new business A.
Before, yeah.
Try to get staff out of here as soon as possible.
Okay. Very good. So we'll move that to X1.
That's budget item 212.
All right.
Amendment 212.
All right, and to handle this minor change to the minutes to add our town attorney as an attendee to the special meeting, is that something we can do? Do we have to pull that off the consent agenda, or can we just do that here now? And
you can do it by consensus now and then leave it as part of the consent.
All right, so...
Yeah, that's what I recommend. Just make that one amendment to the minutes, add him and leave it on the consent agenda.
Okay, very good. Okay, anybody else have any other changes?
No.
Okay, and that's your motion then, Commissioner Weber?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
Second by Bob. Any further discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we have an agenda. Next item is the mayor's communications, and I just have a couple of quick items, two items really, to bring to you today. The first one is sort of a sad note, and this past weekend, George Presley, who was a longtime resident, lakefront owner, and also a town councilman for one term from 1999 to 2003, passed away. And so I would ask for a moment of silence for Mr. Presley. Okay, thank you for that. The second item is just a very brief mention or report. I would, for those of you who were not aware or unable to attend, it was a public meeting. We held our annual planning workshop of the town council and staff last Wednesday on February 7th, and was held off-site so that we could kind of get away from here and focus on sort of some long-range ideas and kind of take stock of where we are. My impression, I was the first time I've ever attended that, and so as a rookie mayor, and so my reaction to it was, I thought it was an excellent meeting. We didn't conduct much business. One item of business we did conduct, and that was the approval of our concession agreement, finally, agreement that's been through at least 3 or 4 iterations over the span of several months. So we felt comfortable at that point approving that, and we did so the town manager can move ahead to get that agreement executed. The other things of note, we received finally reports from both our dam consultant, Dr. Marks, his second phase report on the dam, and as well we received a report from our water and sewer consultant about the potential replacement of our sewer system and possibly our wastewater treatment plant. And so we had put the Green Line project on hold until temporarily, at least until we've had a chance to look at the sewer issues. And we're moving ahead now pretty urgently on both of those reports and their recommendations, and we're taking some actions in both cases to move forward. So those reports are available here at Town Hall. Public. I know there's going to be several articles that are coming very soon. Valerie's written one for the Breeze. I've written about it in my mayor's report, and then on the website of the town there'll be an article posted with some summary information from that if you want to be aware of what it says. No shocking news though for it. The plan we think is reasonable. It's affordable, and we don't see any crises right now at either the dam or the sewers, but we see urgency and we see the need to move ahead, so I will say that. With that then, I'm done with my comments or communications, and I will go ahead and ask the town manager to give us his communications and reports.
Thank you, Mayor. Donnie is here. I believe I saw him somewhere. There he is. Give us a quick update on the hydroelectric plant, please.
Good evening. This month, we've been working on test fitting the parts that we got back from Powerhouse. We had to do some, we had to do some, can you hear me now? Can you
Not
hear me
plugged
now?
in.
Hello.
I think it's plugged in. Plugged in?
Bump it, Tom.
Just get closer to
Back
it.
there, yeah.
Yeah, you just need to talk into it.
Okay,
Get
sorry.
close to it.
Get close to it.
Right, okay. We've been test fitting the parts, the head cover and lower ring and stuff. When Powerhouse had them, we asked them to put some ceramic coating on those parts to keep those protected so they don't rust and give us any more trouble. And some of the machine surfaces got the coating as well, so we had to take a lot of that off. So that's been kind of time consuming, and we finished with it now. We also had a draftsman come in and give us a drawing of the inside of the scroll case in case the town in the future, while everything was out of the way, he could get in and get good measurements in case the town ever decides they want to put a more efficient runner, or, just so they'll have some information about what they have so they don't run into the same things that we ran into when we were taking it out. And we've also been working on the intake can motor. We were doing that today. And we found some electrical issues, and we think the motor is going bad, and that's what we put in our capital improvement for next year, or next fiscal year.
Which motor is that?
The intake can out in the lake.
Right.
That stops the water from the
Penstock, what you
Yes.
call penstock,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. It's original.
Right.
We still want to check that conductor. I was telling David, somebody's going to have to crawl to the top and remove the junction box head.
Right.
Take the individual conductors loose, because from what I understand, that's the original conductor up there.
Yes.
So that's an old cloth insulation that could have gone bad. But if you're reading aground but still trying to run, you may still have a possibility that's just conductors or short up there in that junction. So,
Right. But that's taken up a little bit of our time to getting on this small generator work.
Anybody else have any questions for him? All right, thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Don. Also, as the mayor said, we received a report from Dr. Marks, the summary report from Phase 2 of the dam study. That will be made online available very soon. Is it right there? Thank you. It's already on there. So if you have an opportunity, please take a chance to read that over. The board will be working hard over the next couple of weeks to go ahead and lay out a plan for making those repairs. Second thing, and more of a question for the board, I guess. David Airwood is here, of course, to talk about the private road repair costs. If you'd like to do that during my report. I know we have one person in the audience that's here to talk during public forum, so I'm not sure if you want us to wait until that part of the agenda, or if you'd rather David go ahead and give you an update right now.
I would suggest maybe we hear from David, his thoughts on that, and then during the public comment period, we'll hear from the person who is here about a specific project then. Make sense?
Thank you. As y'all asked me to do it at the meeting before last, was to get some numbers together of what it would cost to make the repairs at Spruce Hill and Night Hollow Way, which we've tried to do. I talked with a contractor about the cost of fixing that there at Spruce Hill, which is basically paving the entrance way up in there, basically 50 feet, starting out wide and coming down to a street width, putting in, I think it was like 50 foot of pipe and ditching to keep that water in the ditch, in the storm drain like it needs to be. There's a total of 24 lots up there that Shannon helped me figure out. We pulled it up on GIS. There's 24 lots up in there. The town owns 10 of those lots. So what I done was broke the cost down. The estimate I got was $6,900 for the repairs. And like I said, the town owns 10 of those lots. If that was split equally between all of the property owners, the town would be spending approximately $2,875 on that there at Spruce Hill, if the town decided to do that. The other one at Night Hollow Way, me and Ron went out and met with him the other week and looked over that situation out there. That's a little more than initially thought of just a washout. While we were over there meeting with Mr. Knight, I went down to the creek to the storm drain. This storm drain is in bad shape. It's a 4-foot diameter storm drain that's been in. Shannon told me he thought it was probably part of the original stuff back in the 20s it was put in, but I don't know how long it's been there, but it's in bad shape, and it's not going to be a cheap repair. It was estimated that, you know, that could cost around $8,000 to repair from step construction. I also know we would have to have a land disturbance permit through Clint. We would have to get a permit through the Division of Water Quality because of the stream. But the estimated cost on that was, like I say, was $8,000. There was a total of 8 lots up there. The town owning 2 of those properties. So, you know, same as the other, if it was split between all the property owners, you know, the town could have $2,000 to spend in their part there. So, you know, however you decide to go is ultimately up to y'all, but I tried to do the best I could coming up with decent numbers to work with. But at this point, I guess it's up to y'all as to which way you want to proceed.
And let me just include one thing real quick. In your packet, David included the resolution that the board adopted in 2009 concerning private roads, and that was the policy I was referring to last month.
David?
Yes, sir.
And I know I've been told this before, can't remember. The pond on down at the bottom there beside the gas station?
Yes.
Does town own that?
That's what I've been told, yes, that it is
Is
owned
it
by the
drained
town.
every year, or it automatically drains, or what's?
Well, it was drained this year because there's an issue with the spillway, which Clint with Lake Operations was gonna check into, because the spillway looks like it's undermining, and rather than taking a chance on that thing completely failing, we went ahead and dropped the water level there, but, there's gonna have to have an engineer to look at that and come up with a solution for the repair on that, yes, sir.
This empties into that? I
No,
guess?
no, sir.
It does not?
No, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. The Night Hollow Way is right above that. You know where the little log cabin
Yeah.
is? That drive right there.
Yeah.
That's Night Hollow Way, and then the other one is Spruce Hill.
But that little
That pond doesn't have anything to do with
creek
it.
doesn't, but does that creek go down into that?
Yes, sir, it does.
So,
Yep.
okay, so if it's washing out and silt and everything, that could be part of the reason why
Yes, sir.
there's so much silt in that pond,
Yes,
where I was
sir.
going with it.
Yes, sir.
How long is that 48-inch culvert?
I haven't measured it, but I'm guessing approximately 60 feet. Would that be close? 55 feet.
55 feet?
Yeah.
And I think that does dump into that pond.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Okay, I thought you were asking if it did or not.
Yeah.
Y'all
Yeah,
wanna-
it ultimately goes down to the pond. Yes, sir, it does.
I'm just thinking from the sediment
Right,
standpoint.
yep. Well, it's definitely, it's washing on downstream. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And that pipe's in bad shape.
Is the plan to remove any of that out of that pond before it's filled back up?
That would be a question, I guess, for Dean, since he handles the dredging part of stuff. I don't know how that's been handled in the past because I haven't been involved in it. So,
Okay.
Ron, do you know?
I don't.
Dean?
You-
Definitely put that on the list to be done.
Now,
that
that's,
was-
we're talking about the one behind the gas station, Lakeview?
Yes.
Yes.
That one was dredged out about 5 years ago, and we were permitted to dredge to a certain point on that where the shallow end is, and the state came out and said, well, no, that's a wetlands to that point. So we were able to dredge out about 3/4 of it, about 1/4 has to stay because it's, quote, wetlands.
We need a gate.
There was probably a very good reason the policy was established of the town not maintaining and private roads and driveways and such. And I don't want to see us get into that business. However, where we own a certain amount of property on a particular private road, it might be beneficial if we could work in conjunction with those other property owners and cost sharing equally
Right.
to get it done. Of course, the town would still take the coordination aspect of it, and there's obviously no reimbursement for that or
Right.
cost sharing of that aspect of it. But and a good example too with the Spruce Hill property, that washes out into Memorial Highway.
Yes, sir.
Causes a problem for everyone,
Yep.
even though it's a private road.
Right.
And the state is obviously not gonna fix it, but since we own the properties up there, which were donated to us, I don't see why we shouldn't go into cost sharing and fixing that one. And then if nothing else, sell those properties with an improved road. But still a private road. Just my thoughts on it.
Well, I'm with you, Steve, on that one. My biggest thing is getting that cost sharing to come on through. I'm afraid with those lots, we may have to do more cost sharing than we'd want to on that. But I'm with you 100%. If we can get the other residents to share with us equally, I think the town would take the supervision and we could do the permitting.
And we would need to secure that agreement
Yes.
beforehand in writing
Right,
that they're willing to do that cost sharing.
right.
So,
Question, David,
Yes, sir.
is there, what's detrimental to the people that own property up there that water, that's running out into the road? Is there anything? What's gonna motivate them to want to do cost share on this project?
I honestly don't know because a lot of those lots up through are just like the town's lots. They've not been built on. They're just lots, Whether or not everybody would get on board and spend part of what it cost, I don't have a clue. That was just what I felt was a fair recommendation to the board, is that, if everybody's gonna own property there and the town felt like they were gonna pay their part, well, they've got 10 parts there, and that's the way I put it out there.
So their part would be $287.50 each? Is there 10 of them? Or am I,
14.
Thank you.
well, it's 14, there's,
24 lots on,
Total.
There's 24,
And we own
24
10.
lots, and we own 10 of
So it'd be
those.
14,
Yeah, so the town's cost would be $2,785 and $2,875, excuse me. And the cost per lot was $287.50. Is what me and Shannon came up with when we broke it down. We pulled it up, the GIS, and looked at the lots, everything that tied to that. So,
the only way I know to go forward to this is to go ahead and contact the property owners and
Yeah,
see how many are willing to participate.
yeah, they get a paved road for $208. No question it's gonna improve the value of their lot more than
Right.
much more
yeah, I especially there on Spruce Hill, I think that would help a lot because the few people that live up there, I think, have tried.
Yeah.
And I think it's more than they can handle with their farm tractor or whatever, you know, I'm not knocking them, but, there's gonna have to be some grading work done and, you know, approximately 50 foot or something up through there paved. Getting that water over into the ditch, controlling it, I think would solve most of the problem without washing out in the road.
How's the best way to go about it to get town, just ask town manager to get in touch with these folks? And
Yeah, let me ask William a question real quick. The public purpose doctrine, with it being a private road, would we need to revise any of those policies to state that it's a public purpose if we own lots in that area before we can spend money? Would we need to do that first before we contacted owners, you think?
Right. I'm not understanding what you were asking me about, revise what?
Just revise the policy that allows a public purpose on a private road if we own property. It's not spelled out in here.
In the policy from 2009 or whatever?
Yeah, if we co-own.
Because if it's a private drive, we technically could not spend money on a private
Right,
drive. Yeah.
I read that policy. I can't remember specifically what it was, but I read it today. And the answer is I don't know. I'll have to look at it again. I don't think so,
Okay.
but that would be easy to do if we determine that.
if we need to modify it, we can modify it so we can
Yes.
accomplish what we're talking about.
Yes.
I'm reading the actual resolution, you know, that, and the resolution says that no town funds or town staff shall be used for the maintenance of private roads and driveways in Lake Lore except upon prior approval by town council.
Town council,
If
right.
you're saying that it, by state law, we couldn't do that,
Well, there's a public purpose doctrine, and so what I want to make sure is that we're okay with
but our
that doctrine.
policy,
Yeah.
I mean, as
It
it's
would
stated
say
here,
that.
allows us to do
Allows
this.
the exception.
Yeah.
I think we're good since the town owns property,
lots.
a fair
Okay.
amount of property, it seems, on this road.
All right.
Um,
So we'll be happy then to contact property owners and,
Yeah, and it seems to me that the rationale behind having this resolution, there's a fair number of private roads throughout this town, and I guess it becomes a very subjective and slippery slope for each time an incident comes up, how do we differentiate between what we say, okay, that sounds reasonable, versus, no, that's not really a good enough reason. And that's why we have adopted resolutions like this. But I think, just listening to the discussion, a reasonable and appropriate approach is if the town's a property owner on the private road, then that seems like a legitimate condition on which we would participate in the maintenance of it, right?
Now,
Okay.
now reading the Tri-City paving proposal, it's only taking care of the entrance to
Yes.
Spruce Hill.
Yes.
It's not going up the hill and doing anything further up the
No,
road.
sir.
It's that entranceway and the pipe, which all feeds into the highway.
Yes.
And how firm is that proposal?
That,
I'm gun shy with proposals we've had in the past that have
Right.
come in under the actual need.
well, and I can contact them back to find out for what period of time this proposal would be good for. I've worked with this company a lot in the past, and they're pretty good at sticking with their proposal. But before we contact property owners, you know, I'll find out for sure, hey, is this number still good? Will it be good for 90 days or?
Yeah, because it may take a couple of months to secure their
That's exactly
agreements
right,
and stuff.
and I don't have a problem with doing that. That way we would have for sure, a firm number, and I would want to do the same on the Knight Holloway as well, is, you know, get Myron or a contractor out there to look and give us a firm number price, and see what it would
Yeah,
cost.
Plus, Stephen, the owners of Tri-City Paving are property owners within the town, and
Yep.
we'll shut them down or something if they don't.
That's right.
Yeah, I noticed their proposal on the Knight Holloway was only $450, and
That-
I understand
that
that
was-
something else was
Yeah,
discovered
that was
after.
my fault, because I was looking at it just as a washout.
Right.
Right there where it is, because I was told a water line had ruptured there, and I put two and two together. That's totally my fault. After we got out there and met with him, I went down in the creek, because he expressed his concerns, and I went down in the creek myself, and he had good reason to be concerned that pipe's in bad shape.
So-
And it's going to fail, bottom line. It's already failing, and it's gonna continue to get worse.
Well, I would, to separate these actions, and to separate the Spruce Hill,
Okay?
I would like to make the motion that we move forward with contacting the property owners on Spruce Hill
Okay?
to get that fixed and firm up the Tri-City Paving bid, and see if we can get the owner's agreement in there and then move forward with it.
Okay?
That's
That's your
Spruce
motion?
Hill only.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Weber. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Bob, Commissioner Cameron seconds that. Any other discussion anybody have? All right, all those in favor? Opposed, same sign. Passes.
Now, as far as the Knight Holloway, we haven't heard everything. We haven't heard from the gentleman on the public forum yet. And
Okay.
we've got a lengthy paper on that we just received when we walked in.
Right.
So I'd like to defer any decision on that one until we do. But I noticed the third road on there, on your Tri-City
Lake Lure
paving
Inn.
is the street beside Lake Lure Inn. What's the name of this street?
That's a totally separate quote. That's a patch. While I had him
okay.
up here, I got a quote on.
That's not part of our discussion.
That's not part of our
Okay,
discussion, no, sir.
got it, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
David.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Another quick update. I know several of you were at the regional legislative breakfast. I thought it went real well. They talked about the legislative issues that we're going to be facing in the county, in the region, over the next year. So I've included those in your packet just for reference in case you didn't get a copy at the breakfast. And again, just a word of thanks to the board members for participating and the work that you did in preparation of the board retreat. And I think we did get a lot accomplished. And again, thank you all for your work. And we look forward to this next year. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Thanks, Ron. Okay, and that brings us to item number 5 on our agenda, which are the council liaison reports and comments. Anybody want to volunteer to go first?
Yeah, I'll start first
All
because
right.
our meeting was canceled.
Well, that brings us to,
Make it easy on you.
all right, anybody, who?
I'll go
John,
next.
go ahead, we'll just go down the
ABC
road.
store,
Yeah.
we met, and I don't think I said these things last month, but it was interesting how the concept with our ABC store. A lot of things going on there, as everybody knows, with the project for the possible relocation of the ABC store. We're putting some emphasis on getting things going with that and coming up with some decisions. And I think there was some, not necessarily opposition, but some folks on the ABC board were not crazy about our plans. And at that meeting, I asked that they would, that if they would, in writing, voice their opinion and their position on that. And I did get a call back from the chairman of the ABC board 2 weeks ago that said they had decided not to do that, not to pursue that. That was a lot of controversy when they first showed some opposition, and that they expressed that they're behind whatever the town's decision is in regards to that property and to moving that property in support of that. So that was that's my report from the ABC board.
Thank you. John?
Lake Advisory?
You have a question?
Lake Advisory?
We do Lake Advisory?
Have we had a lake advisory meeting? I guess we have.
Yeah.
Lake advisory, we spent a good bit of time, which is not unusual. I was on the lake advisory for lots of years, and we discussed the same thing then. But the issue of lowering the lake and the problems that it creates, and the reasons why we have to do it, and I'll just say that there's a real focus. Dean was there, and going to be some assignments put out to really study our process of lowering the lake and the number of years, how often we do it, and if there's any way that we can possibly not do it, unless it's an emergency or something to do with the dam. So there's a lot of work going into that, and a lot of planning going to be done on that. And you know, people say, well, it would cost more to work on walls and things if we did that. Well, it costs a lot of money when we bring the lake down, to the tune of about
$2,000 a day.
$2,000 a day that we lose in revenue, and just from the generation at the power plant. So, you know, we got to have a big, broad, open mind about this and make some decisions about that are going to be important for us, for the town. And Lake Advisory is taking the front runner on that and going to work on it in conjunction with Dean and with us and Ron and the staff. And so we've got some big challenges there, I think, that'll make a big difference for the town and for the budget. You know, having a seawall may not be the best thing, and pretty much been determined it's probably not the best thing. And I know there'd have to be some places in front of properties where they do have a seawall, where you're going to build your boathouse and stuff like that. For the most part, riprap walls are much better for the ecology than a straight up and down poured seawall. So a lot of things in the works and a lot of things to be studied and challenges there. So there was one other thing that was discussed there, the boat density on the lake, the model that we've used over the years for determining the number of boat permits that are available. On the commercial side, that model is full, and so we had a special someone there at the Lake Advisory meeting requesting that we change that number, and so a permit could be issued. We had another couple there that wants to have that has a business that wants to have a commercial license as well, and so that's going to be another thing that it's another thing we're looking at now, and another thing that we're going to have to address. Right now, there's no commercial boat permits available, and so we've got that to deal with as far as from boat permits. That doesn't affect the residential permits, but that's totally strictly dealing with commercials. So that's a challenge there for the Lake Advisory as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Moore?
Okay, the Zoning and Planning Board met on January 16th at 9:30. It's always the third Tuesday in the month at 9:30 in the morning. We received and reviewed a memo from Mr. Morgan concerning vacation rental operating permits. We're looking at returning the process to an administrative review for the vacation rental operating permits as it was originally adopted. The standards would be added for staff to apply to residential vacation rentals. It's basically just changing it back to the way it was originally from a permit that they would receive from the Board of Adjustment to an administrative process. And over the, I guess, 8 or 9 years we've been doing these, none have been turned down, and only 2, I think, have had some conditions put on them. There were, the town has spent an estimated $12,000 in time on the current program and only brought in about $6,000 in revenue. and Mr. Burton had reviewed the current VROP process, and he says that with upcoming World Equestrian Games in 2018, there's probably going to be an uptick in the requests. And he pointed out that vacation rentals never been denied, and that for these reasons and it basically just taking a ton of time, that it was better to make it a administrative process. And they'll continue to review that at the February meeting, and probably bring something back to town council for review later on. Let's see. One other thing that was noted was the board and staff agreed that it should be clear that if a home is not used for vacation rentals for 5 consecutive years, that their permit would be rendered null and void. And we got an opinion from Mr. Morgan that he did not feel that the town's vacation rental ordinance was in violation of the recently amended statute with the state. Mr. Baldwin noted that the staff could come back in February with and would have a draft for us, hopefully at that time. Concerning the review of permitted uses in commercial districts, that study is not yet complete, but the board was updated or was provided with an inventory of the permitted uses that we have now and conditional uses in the commercial districts from surrounding towns. Let's see. Microbreweries was a topic of discussion, and the bottom line is that as the law is now, Lake Lure can't have a microbrewery that sells beer only. It would have to have food sales as well. That process could probably only be changed by means of a referendum. On the Hodge property over in Tryon Bay, the code enforcement coordinator said that pursuant to the direction from the town attorney, he has served the 5th and final civil citation on Duck Cove properties, that's the Hodge property, for an ongoing nuisance, and that the staff is ready to proceed with the next steps. And I reminded them that we had, as council, had said that we wanted to move forward with that as quickly as possible, that we didn't want that to drag out anymore. And so they were reminded of that and are in the process of continuing to move forward with whatever has to be done to get the Hodge property brought into a safe condition. And that's my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Weber?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. The Board of Adjustment met on January 23rd. The board welcomed the new alternates, Al Joyner and Wynn Hardy. And if y'all recall, Wynn Hardy we recruited from the audience last month, so welcome him. Mark Hook was elected as the new chair, and Melvin Owensby as the new vice chair. The board discussed the pros and cons of the current vacation rental process that Commissioner Moore alluded to, and versus an administrative process. And they also recommended that it be changed to an administrative process. The Lake Structure Appeals Board also met only to conduct the election and their annual election and approve their minutes. They also elected Mark Hook as the chair and chair as Melvin Owensby. The Parks and Recreation Board met on February the 1st. Some key points to bring out is there is a Parks and Recreational seasonal position available. This is the part-time person that works with them during the summer. The details and application are on the town website if you know anybody interested in applying for that part-time position. Save the date of May the 4th on your calendars. That is going to be the grand opening to the completed Buffalo Creek Park and Weed Patch Mountain 1,500-acre trail system. And more details will be forthcoming on that. The electric vehicle station over by the Welcome Center is now fully operational, and there was a story featured on the front page of the Daily Courier last week. I want to give thanks again to Duke Power for their $5,000 grant, the Rutherford County TDA for their $2,500 grant, Bob Cameron for all of his electrical expertise and the work he personally did and donated to that project, Shannon Baldwin for all the work that he did out of the Community Development Department and organizing and coordinating all of that effort, and our Public Works Department for all the work that they did regarding that project. Many thanks. And that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. All right, that brings us to the public comment period. Ron, would you mind grabbing the list there? Thank you. Okay, here's we have two members of the public that would like to come before us. Just a reminder, we try to limit this to 5 minutes. We think that's a sufficient time, to air an issue and give us a chance to react. The first one is Boyce Abernathy.
Guess I need to get up here and get my pie hole close to the microphone. My purpose for being here is informational purposes. I attend county commissioner meetings, and from time to time there's some information that I think is important, and I drove up the mountain tonight to give some information to y'all. Rutherford County Public Schools has a proposal on the table to borrow up to $198 million. The phase one, if y'all will remember, back some time ago, there was a vote of a 1/4 cent sales tax. Y'all probably will remember that, and it was voted down. They're going to have a reboot. That is going to be brought back up again. And Rutherford County Board of County Commissioners met with the school board and in a joint meeting. They had some discussion about that, and I was there. So if you had been there, here's some of what you would have heard. Phase one would be to spend $30 million for an RS middle school, $20 million for a Cliffside Elementary School, and $9 million for a school bus garage. Subsequently, now they're referring to the school bus garage as a transportation center. So if you hear anything, the school bus garage, transportation centers, same thing, maybe it's politically correct. But some questions that I've had, and quite frankly, no one has the answers yet. Cliffside Elementary School is on the National Historical Registry, as you may or may not know. I've asked what would happen to that building, and as of now, no one knows. From what I understand, since it's on the National Historical Registry, it couldn't be tore down. So from what I'm hearing probably would happen is that the school board, at the time that it would be ceased using as a elementary school, it would be turned over probably to the county. County probably couldn't tear it down. If they went through the procedure to even tear it down, I've asked, and it probably has asbestos in it. The RS middle school now, what we referred to when I went to Central was the main building. I don't know what would happen with it. If it's tore down, it probably would have asbestos in it. So just some questions out there that, the average citizen, I think, would have an interest in. Phase one would be either $49 or $59 million, and as they discussed at the joint meeting, the reason for being 49 to 59 is that they're going to, right now Rutherford County is a Tier 2 county. We used to be a Tier 1, now we're a Tier 2. Their plan is that they would apply for a $10 million grant to DPI, Department of Public Instruction, to get a $10 million grant. So if that came through, then phase one is they would borrow $49 million. If they didn't get the grant, they'd borrow $59 million. So they have estimated that if this 1/4 cent sales tax is enacted in Rutherford County, it would bring in an additional estimated $1.2 million a year. So, that will be coming up, and just wanted to bring that to your attention. That was this one here, and then I brought two other ones for you. These are self-explanatory. You can just look at them. I'll hang around, and if anybody wants to talk afterwards, but the school board, as my understanding, is going to put on an advertising program before the next vote. They had it the other time, and there wasn't a whole lot of discussion about it. From my understanding, the reboot, the do-over, there's going to be some discussion about it. But anyhow, there's just some issues there that I thought I'd bring to your attention, and I'm printing these up and handing them to folks that I know and just letting them look at it. But as it stands now, Phase 2 would be an East Rutherford High School, and that has not been discussed. It's just on the document. That East Rutherford High School, they're saying, would be built in the next 10 years, would cost an estimated $50 million, and a Chase High School, a new Chase High School, would cost an estimated $50 million. So you can look at the numbers on there. So the estimated amount for Rutherford County Public Schools for the next 10 years on their capital facilities need would be $198. And then if you look at what Rutherford County and isothermal has, that would come to a total of borrowing up to $240 million for Rutherford County in the next 10 years. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, next up would be Richard and Shirley Knight.
Thank the town council for letting me speak to you for a few minutes here. I've been working with Ron and David and Kevin, and it's been a pleasure working with all three of you with this problem over at Night Hollow Way, which currently was Isaac Walton Court. I, Richard Knight, I just want to read this into the records. I, Richard Knight, have owned property at Lake Loremont section, Lot 8 in Lake Lure for 14 years. I have lived here permanently for the past 12 years. Shirley and I, my wife, lovely wife, is married in 2007. She's permanently lived here for 10 years. We've been completely supportive of the Lake City and community, Lake Lure City and community. We are both retired since 2012. I do, however, drive the school bus for the Lake Lure Academy for the past 5 years, but I'm currently on some medical leave. Shortly after I built my cabin here, my cousin Kareem Bray visited from Florida. She loved it. She bought the last buildable lot, on lot 11. If you want to look at some of the documents I gave you there, that'd be document 6. She soon built a home there and has lived there for the past 11 years. She's in her 80s in bad health. She couldn't be here tonight. She lives there with her son, Jim Ruckman, his wife and family. Upon my cousin building her very steep concrete driveway and knowing it would wash out the gravel Night Hollow Way, Isaac Walton Court at the bottom, during heavy rain, she planned on extending the concrete across Night Hollow to prevent washouts. City manager Chuck Place at the time, at the advice of maintenance manager at the time, Tony Hennessy, told her she couldn't put permanent pavement on that portion of the abandoned Night Hollow Way because it belonged to the city. She offered to use blacktop. They refused that as well and made her follow their design of a French drain under Night Hollow Way with riprap on the opposite side to filter mud before the main drainage ditch running alongside of Memorial Highway. That eventually dumps into the little pond we were talking about earlier and into the lake. I personally told Chuck and Tony this would not prevent washouts, as did my cousin's contractor. And I worked, just so you know, I told him that because I've worked in construction. I'm a construction engineer for 42 years. 30 of that years was in site prep and underground utilities. After the first big rain and washout, I asked Chuck to meet me there. At that time, in 2004, Chuck and I entered into a handshake deal that the city would maintain what he called their part of the road, which included the entire U-shaped eyebrow around the city's triangle-shaped property adjacent to Memorial Highway. So the city owns a triangle in there. There's an eyebrow that comes off of Memorial Drive, goes around that triangle and back to Memorial Drive. He wanted that whole, he said that whole thing was theirs, not to do anything with it. I would maintain the remaining 200 feet of the abandoned Night Hollow Road up to my cabin. From that day, for the next 4 years, whenever a washout area got very hazardous. I would call Tony at the town maintenance, and he would send a couple guys with a rubber-tired backhoe and crusher run stone and fix it. They even left a pile of stone over there near the area for future fix. In 2009, when Steve Wheeler was city manager, I was told that he had told Tony not to fix our washouts again. I met with Steve Wheeler at the location and explained the history and agreement. He allowed that current washout to be fixed by city workers, but suggested that I go to town council and get this clarified so I wouldn't have to deal with it every time there's a new city manager. I did this on January 13th, 2009. During my time speaking, explaining this history involved at that meeting, my cousin Crean was there and verified that she had been told emphatically by the city manager that the eyebrow portion of Night Hollow Way at the end of her drive belonged to the city. Likewise, Rudy Esposito, owner of Lake Lore Cabins, lot number 12 on that map, stated that he had also been told by city officials that he could not pave his parking lot because part of it was city property and they would not allow permanent pavement. And a note there is that portion they were telling him not to pave is right where the sinkhole is now. I was given an audio copy of my portion of this town council meeting, which I presented to Ron Nally. On this tape, there is an unsolicited statement from a city official clearly stating that this Eyebrow Road portion is the city's and are planning to utilize it in the future when developing the city reserve park land adjacent to it. Also clearly stated on this tape is a city legal advisor stating that the fact is that Mr. Knight's request for city maintenance here is unlike any others in the city's records, and a clear precedence has been established here with at least 3 or 4 city performing maintenance repairs due to the handshake agreement. He suggested that this go no further until it could be investigated. That abruptly ended my talk. I have my copy of this audio available to any council member. In November 2017, my cousin Crean's water line broke near where the sinkhole is now. There wasn't a sinkhole there, of course, then. A few weeks later, on December, it broke again.
Mr. Knight, you're on page 3 here, and there's at least 3 more pages, and you're pretty well up to 5 minutes here. Is there some way you could summarize this and kind of get to a conclusion so we just don't have to cut this off? Or
Yeah, we've got a copy of your letter, and we can read all that.
Okay, I think I can summarize that if you'll allow me a couple minutes here.
Sure.
Basically what we're saying is the city owns that triangle. I was told that once the road is abandoned, and I was told by Chuck Place that road was abandoned. That's why I finished the road myself. The city would have been a public road, but it wasn't because it was abandoned. So that made it, I guess, a private road. The city, and I was told when a road is abandoned that the adjacent property owner owns out to the center line of the road or maintains that, owns it, whatever. That right-of-way on the 1927 plot plan, that right-of-way for Isaac Walton Court is 40 feet. That would mean center line would be 20 feet each way. If you, in the center where this sinkhole has happened, it's 15 feet from center line downhill. That's where the city owns that triangle. So by that ordinance, or whatever that's called, ordinance or proposal or whatever, the city would own where the sinkhole is. Rudy Esposito owned the other 20 feet up here, and Rudy put a 48 and brand new 48-inch section of 20 foot of pipe there to honor that. What I'm asking now is that the city would honor, just like Rudy did, their 20 feet of this and take care of the sinkhole. There's only 2 of us that live up there. The other property that David was talking about, there's nobody that lives there. There ain't really not even buildable lots anymore because the road's been abandoned. And then there's Rudy Esposito's business that's actually on Memorial Drive, but his parking lot's part of that road.
Mr. Knight,
Yes.
We brought up a lot of different points here, and a lot of them probably need to be just confirmed for our use. I don't think we'll be able to do it tonight,
I understand.
I think it would be maybe a good idea, let's get the town manager to look at this and go over this and come up with a recommendation on, or or maybe the community development director to say, you know, share what we own and what we don't own, because there seems to be some question about that. And then possibly we can go from there, because as it stands right now, I don't think any of us have a good grip on who owns what, which makes it impossible for us to make a decision right now.
I concur with that, but I would also recommend, in the meantime, and maybe we can get this answered next month, but I would recommend if you can talk to the other property owners.
What's my cousin?
Well, all the lots. You said there's only two that
I don't know
live
who
there.
owns them.
You can find out through tax records, but if you would research that, talk to them and see what their willingness is to do the cost sharing. It might be helpful to your case.
The urgency here that the one contractor that's looked at this so far, Mr. Stepp, he said, you know, if you fix it right now, if you can put, it's a 48-inch, if you put a 36-inch corrugated metal pipe in there now through it before it caves in, you know, it'll be an easy fix. If you wait till it caves in, you got to dig everything up, and then it's going to be a big fix and a big expense.
Okay.
So there is an urgency here to try to get something done
Well,
in a hurry.
It makes it difficult when we get all of your notes,
Oh, I know.
you know, 5 minutes before the meeting.
I wanted to be on the agenda, they wouldn't let me. So there you go.
He now, Ron, to be fair, he has come to us a week or so ago, and we've known, I think, in that period that the property ownership issue has that been researched? Have you or Shannon looked at that? Do we have an answer to that tonight?
Shannon, of course, has reviewed it. There's no record of the abandonment that he discusses. What we've had to operate on is, yes, we do own property in that area, and Shannon, correct me if I misspeak, that we do own property in that area. The road is considered a private drive, and we have a policy in place that doesn't allow us to make repairs on private driveways or private roads. So that is where we have left it until there's further action by the
Right.
board.
Of course, this isn't the driveway, isn't the problem, it's the drainage.
His point, though,
problem.
has to do with the, who is the property owner?
There is no record of an abandonment, so therefore it would be a...
Well, the points that he raises about past conversations and the handshake agreement and all that probably needs to be explored, and just to make, you know, see if there's anything, if we have any obligation there or not.
Yeah.
I suspect we don't, but who knows?
Unless Shannon knows something I don't, we had no record of those conversations or handshake agreements.
I have Ron Place's phone number right here if anybody wants to call him.
I can tell by the things he was saying. I've been here since this has been going on, although I haven't been directly involved in it the whole time. But based on what he's telling you about who was saying what as far as the town managers go, it seemed to be very accurate to me. And knowing that old map, which is the old Draper plan from the 1920s that David and I did take a look at, you need a map to look at. As far as abandoning the properties go, that right-of-way is in there, and those calls and distances do not go to the center of that right-of-way. So I'm not sure if there's a state law about that, but that right-of-way is clearly there. Those lots that adjoin the driveway that he's talking about do not go to the center unless there's a state law that says if a right-of-way is abandoned, then everyone owns the center. But I can tell you that those calls and distances do not go to the center of that right-of-way.
Shannon, since you've been here while all this transpired, would it be possible for you and Mr. Knight to maybe come up with, you know, it's everywhere now, to get it nailed down so that we can
Sure.
know who owns what, and hopefully we can come to some kind of, where we do a participation like we did on the other property, but we need more information than we have in front of us right now.
Be glad to do that.
And as it's studied, if there's really a sense of urgency, then we could call a special meeting to deal with it, if there's that much urgency needed.
Yeah, well, the winter freeze stabilized it, but now it's gonna thaw, you know. And it's just like David said, it's gonna be a problem, big problem.
Yeah. We're not ignoring you, sir.
I understand that.
But we do need a little more research on it.
Here's where it kind of irks me is that if in fact abandoning the road didn't happen, then I put this whole road in where the city should have put it in, because it would have been a public road. And I was told back then, we were abandoning this road, and in the 2009 meeting and a 2013 meeting I had over another issue, that we've talked about the abandoned road and no one said anything different, that it wasn't an abandoned road. And I was certainly told that when the city ordinance is when it abandons the road, then that adjacent property owner owns out to the.
Got it.
Well,
Wouldn't be the
Shannon has
maintainer up to the center
very
line.
good grip on all of that, and he'll help
Okay,
you.
thank you very
We'll
much.
look at it.
Appreciate your time, sorry it took so long.
No,
That's
thank
all
you,
right.
sir.
That's okay. Okay, all right, so, let's see, on our agenda, that brings us then to the consent agenda, and we've made some changes.
Yes, sir. And, Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with the amendments previously discussed.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Cameron seconds. All those in favor? Opposed, same sign. Okay. Unfinished business, item number 8. First item on there is lake level discussion. There has been, and I've been involved in it, there has been a substantial amount of research and effort put into trying to find a way forward that we could accommodate the various and competing needs of different constituents involved in the lake drawdown. Those include there are 3 projects that really are at the heart of the issue, which involve the placement of concrete as part of the construction project. And we've been running along now with a rule that was passed that I come to find out by our Lake Advisory Board recommended, and we adopted these rules that prohibits concrete placed in the lake coming in contact with water within 28 days. There seems to be no state regulation or fundamental construction principle associated with that. There certainly is for curing concrete for 28 days, but we have come to find out that concrete reaches at least 75% or more of its strength in as little as 7 days. And so from a structural standpoint, so far, we see really no basis for the 28-day offset. And so we'll be directing the Lake Advisory Board to look into this rule and determine why it exists and what we could do to modify it to lessen the period of drawdown in that 28 days. But that does not necessarily address the situation completely that we have today, and that the 3 projects are involved, are at various stages of completion, and at least one of them appears to be still under construction to the point where raising the lake may be an issue. I think we may have, I had understood that we were going to have the property owner here and his contractor, but I wouldn't recognize Mr. Stokes, I believe it is, or his contractor, Jay Freeman. And so we really, we don't have them present, to update us on that particular project. I did take a boat ride today with Dean, and just to inspect the projects, and clearly one of them is complete. The one that's out at Lurecrest did a nice job out there, and that project is complete. We went by the project at Paradise Point, which appears to still be under construction, but no one was working on it today. Not quite sure where that project is in terms of...
I have an update if you like.
Yes, I would.
I spoke with, there's actually a contractor and a subcontractor on that project. The contractor, Stephen Pruitt, and the subcontractor is Jay Freeman. They've both been working together on that. And Stephen told me last Thursday or Friday that with good weather, he felt like in 7 days, they could be in good shape on that. Well, it's rained every day since then. And so they're not in too bad a shape on that one. They're with things that have to be done before the water comes up. They're getting close to, but they're not there yet. Maybe they would have been had we not had all the rain we had this weekend. And so it's not too far off on what has to be done before we can start the water back up on that one.
And as I said, I'm not, although Clint did do a report on the other project, the Stokes project, it sort of indicated that it was pretty far along. So where do we stand tonight? I don't think that we, as a council, have a sufficient amount of information.
I talked with some of the contractors today too. I talked with Jay Freeman, and he said basically it comes down to the weather. He said he needs another 8 or 9 good working days. And we pulled up the forecast, and for the next 15 days, every day is about a 40 to 50% chance of rain. So it makes it really tough to make a call right now. If that rain comes in the evenings, he can work during the day. We can bring the lake up sooner. If it doesn't, I think my recommendation would be to stick to the commitment that we made to them at our, I guess it was our December special meeting, when we promised them that we would give them till May 15th, excuse me, till March 15th. But they said, and we got a commitment from them that they would work every day that the sun was shining and would do everything they could to get it up by then. And I think from my follow-ups that they have honored their part of the agreement. So my recommendation is that we honor ours, and we continue to watch it for the next week or two, and hopefully we can get it up and meet with the resort and see what. I see we've got Phil here tonight. This, as much as the rain is preventing construction, the good part of that is that the rivers are full and the watershed's full, and when we do decide to bring it or can bring it up, it'll come up quickly. But I understand, Phil, is it correct that wherever the water level is when your rowers arrive, it's better for you or for them if it stays there, that it's not fluctuating while they're here? Is that accurate?
It's 100% correct.
I'm sorry.
It's 100% correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Okay. Well, I guess as we get closer, we can coordinate with them.
No, it's the 13th, so we probably still have a few more days to be able to make that call and have some practical potential to get the lake up as close as we can to full pond before the rowers arrive on March 1st. That would be our goal if we could do it, but I can't.
8th.
March 8th?
They're coming on March 8th.
Well, that gives us a little more flexibility. Any day
Phil,
counts.
that's not what I was told by the manager, the 8th, that we're starting on the 3rd, and that week from the 3rd to the first week they would be coming in on a stagger. But is it the 8th?
All right.
Okay.
Well, so again, we're just working day to day on this. Just know, everybody, that we're trying to do what's in the best interest of the town, and obviously what's in our best interest is to start generating power as soon as we can from a practical standpoint. We understand the impact on the rowers on our economy and of the dependence on that of the resort and other businesses in town. So we're trying to accommodate their needs, and we've made a commitment to contractors that we'd give them sufficient time because we delayed lowering the lake to its full 5 feet. So I hope that we never experience this kind of situation again. We will have a few years to to come up with the policies to avoid such a thing. We're working on, as you heard, the possibility of not lowering the lake, the need to do that. I think many of the lakefront homeowners might just welcome that. And so we will continue to stay on this until it gets resolved as best that it can. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, you
yes.
mentioned at the beginning of your discussion on it about directing the Lake Advisory Board to study the concrete curing standards that are in our lake structure regulations.
Yes,
so
sir.
I make a motion that we task the Lake Advisory Board to do that and put that on their agenda.
Okay, there's a motion by Commissioner Witter.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Moore seconds that. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, the Tryon Bay Circle. It's just, again, the reconsideration of a one-way designation of the circle. I think this is at least the second, could be the third time we're looking at this, a potential for making some changes in the current one-way configuration. There's information in our packets about the survey that was conducted. Somebody want to comment on this?
I read the survey results, and it was more than overwhelming, over 90%. I think there was one maybe that
This is the second survey, right?
This is the second survey. There was one person on Tryon Bay that wanted to change it, and a number of the comments of the people who were surveyed said that that they weren't aware of this wink and a nod on some people coming in for a certain, being able to go both ways on part of it, and that they didn't think that that was right. And I would like to leave it. I think a motion's not required because we're not changing anything, but I would like to see if there's a consensus of the council. We've got the police chief here if there was ever a wink and a nod, that is not what we have. That if somebody's going the wrong way on that street, if they don't know, maybe give them a warning if they're not doing anything dangerous. But if there's somebody that knows, get the pen out.
I agree with that. We've gone through the motions. We considered all the neighbors, and the neighbors have spoken. So my feeling is to leave it the way it is.
Well, and I believe we do need a motion because this was a request that was sent to us and officially considered for 3 months, 2 surveys, and I think we need the motion to leave it as is and deny the request.
Okay.
I think it's
good.
Inappropriate. So
Yeah,
you want to make
sure.
that motion then?
I just did, sir.
He just did not.
No, you said you thought somebody should.
To be sure. All right. So we
Okay,
have-
I make a motion that we leave it as one way, Tryon Bay Circle as one way, and deny the request to change it.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Commissioner Cameron
Either one.
seconds that. Discussion?
No.
If none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. That brings us to item 8C, as the golf cart ordinance. We've had this on our agenda now at least once or twice. Ron, could you kind of take us through where we are here?
Sure,
on
yes,
this?
sir. As you know, we could tell, let me back up, sorry. We've had discussed this 2 months, I guess, now. We have made revisions to the proposed golf cart ordinance that was suggested by town council at their last meeting. We have met with Rumbling Bald and discussed those changes and made some of those based on their comments as well. We also had a discussion with the state because, as you know from the map, there is a gap of property that is not within the town limits. And they have come back and stated that Rutherford County does have the ability to adopt a golf cart ordinance that would cite our golf cart ordinance, but it will take some additional work. They suggested we continue moving if the board wishes to do so, and that the Rutherford County piece will sort of fall into place. So we are recommending that we go ahead and schedule a public hearing at your March meeting just to get public comment and see what folks think about that.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I've reviewed this again, and there's still some things that need to be done to get it ready for adoption if it comes to that point. We still need an inspection checklist that the police would use to conduct those inspections, so they are not subjective. They are strictly objective, and they cannot be criticized for inspecting this on one and this on the other. The registration that would be granted, there needs to be a registration form as part of this on what they look like, where they would be applied to the vehicles. That part may already be there. There's another part under the staff comments and recommendations that if an ordinance is adopted, NCDOT will not pay for any cost of signage. This cost, or this would have to be paid for by the town or by the resort. I feel the town should not bear any cost for the signage, since this is strictly a request from the resort for their purposes and for their benefit. I'm not opposed to the ordinance, but we do need to tweak it to make sure it's right before we put it into effect. Once the hearing is had and considering any evidence presented at the hearing. So based on that, I make a recommendation that we hold a public hearing on March, what's the date? March 13th at 6 p.m. or shortly thereafter to consider the adoption of a golf cart ordinance for the town of Lake Lure.
Okay. So we need, is that a motion then?
Yes,
What that
it
amounts
was.
to is a motion.
That really was that time.
Second, you're dealing with the rookie mayor. You don't say motion, I don't know what you're saying. So. All right,
Okay.
I'll second it for you.
He'll second that recommendation.
all right. Thank you.
No, I made the motion.
All right. Any discussion further? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Welcome to our world.
You gotta give me some time.
We're still not over it.
All right.
I make the motion. You did.
All right, that then moves us into item number 9, which is new business. The first item on the new business agenda, item A, is the 2018-2023 capital improvements plan, and I believe Ron Nally.
We amended that, sir, and the first one is the budget amendment.
Oh, you are absolutely correct.
That we
Thank you
moved.
very much.
No,
Yeah.
just a general reminder.
Which was, yes, and that was adapt budget amendment 212.
Right.
That's the one we moved.
The reason I asked that be moved is because it, let me pull it up again here. So much stuff in here. Okay, the purpose is to cover unbudgeted loan interest for the water line extension to Ingalls and Water Tower. However, down further under the account name, it has Green Line Project Debt Service. That was totally confusing.
Is there,
Totally unrelated on
Sam, do you have any, can you shed some light on that?
why a water line extension to the Ingalls and Water Tower. What does that have to do with the Green Line Debt Service?
This is a confusion that the town manager created, so.
Okay, now that I understand.
Okay, so it becomes clear.
Goodness gracious.
I'm just kidding.
Your evaluations when?
Yeah.
So basically, it was unallocated interest money that we didn't budget. We got to come up with approximately $11,000 to cover the interest payment. The state loans are semi-annual payments, 2 interest payments and 1 principal payment. And what I suggested, just to take the expense from the Green Line debt service, which we had budgeted $390,000, just take 11 out of that and move it to interest for the water line extension.
So what does that do to the Green Line project?
It will lower it from 390 to...
No, I understand the numbers, it lowered, you're taking 11,000 out of it, but what's the ultimate effect on the Green Line project?
Well,
not the debt.
So this would fall under a semi-annual payment. We're past the halfway point of our fiscal year, so that money probably will not be spent.
Probably.
Not half of it anyways.
Not, we do another budget amendment.
Yeah, it's interest on money that we
didn't
haven't
borrow.
used, so
Yeah.
we're not spending it.
That's
So
correct.
It's
That's
extra in the
correct.
budget, just a place to get it from one.
That's,
And we don't
yeah,
have no
Robin-
plans
Robin
to
Peter
spend
to
it in the
pay
second
Paul.
half, right? Yeah.
that was my thought.
Okay. Clears it up for me.
Yeah, I understand.
You all right? Okay. All right, with that clarification, Commissioner Weber, are you good with that budget adjustment or not?
I mean, I understand.
I'll go
Okay,
ahead.
all right.
I'll go ahead and make the motion.
wanna make
that
the
we-
motion?
We accept adopt the budget amendment number 212.
I'll second that.
All right. Commissioner Kilby seconds that. Any further discussion?
No.
If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Now,
Sorry about that, Ron.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks.
very clear.
Don't do that again.
All right, now, the CIP.
Thank you. You have in front of you the 2018-2023 proposed CIP plan for the town of Lake Lure. Again, this starts our one-month review of all those projects, and I have included also in your packet a summary sheet, which we initially handed out on February 7th at the board retreat, of all the first-year funding opportunities. And so those are included. But again, tonight we are suggesting that you call a public hearing for March 13th at 6:10 p.m. For folks to comment on the CIP, and I understand that this will be included on our website by the end of the week. So by Friday, you should see the full 200 or so pages of the CIP and the projects that are being proposed for initial funding. So again, I think there's a total of about $17 million worth of projects, and the first year funding projects are included on a separate sheet for people to review.
Oh. The first public hearing was, we changed from 6:10 to 6, and this one's showing 6:10 too. They've always been 6 p.m. or shortly thereafter, which is whenever we get to them in the order of business. So I'm just wondering why we're doing it different now. So, I make a motion for a public hearing on March 13, 2018 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as possible to discuss the proposed 2018-2023 capital improvements plan.
Okay, Commissioner Weber makes the motion. There's a second.
I'll second.
Commissioner Cameron seconds. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, the next item of new business is a professional service contract. This has to do with the firing range. It's a contract with Odom Engineering. Is that one, Ron?
We have Chief Humphreys here if you have any
Chief Humphreys,
questions.
wanna handle that?
You want to say a word, or? He doesn't seem too eager.
What you gonna say?
Deer in the headlights.
I'm not about to do anything with Sam sitting over
Didn't
there.
trap him up. That'll be the last meeting he comes to.
This is details with the firing range. Is money approved last year to just button up the firing range. I know when certain things are not in my wheelhouse, so I brought Brad in to help me on this. He knows the most about it, and we've talked to Odom Engineering, and both feel very confident in the job that they can do for us up there.
It's pretty self-explanatory document, except, and David may have to help me, and Brad probably knows, proposal of engineering services for design and oversight of 2 BMPs for runoff from 2 firing ranges. First of all, BMPs means different things to different people. BMPs in my military language is Soviet infantry fighting vehicles. So what are these? What are these? Oh, that's what you're building? Okay. What are the BMPs?
You want to have a stab at it?
What are BMPs?
BMP is an acronym for Best Management Practices.
Oh, okay.
And there is an established body of literature on stormwater best management practices.
Okay. There's nowhere did
It's
it
a civil
explain
engineering
that,
term.
so-
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And basically, the concept of what is being done here is diverting stormwater runoff from entering
Right.
into the area that's contaminated and directing it around that area so as not to aggravate the problem. Is that?
That's a pretty good synopsis. Trying
that's all
to
it
clean,
Yeah.
get as much runoff as we can.
Okay.
Clean the first flush, try to remove as much total suspended solids from that as possible, and then put it in a pipe and get it out of there without any wash across any adjacent properties.
And Odom's proposal is to do the design work and
Yes, sir.
and assist in the permitting and,
Yes, sir.
and then to be out there when the
Yes, sir.
actual
Construction
work is-
administration.
Make sure it's done the way he said it.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Yeah, okay.
I make a motion that we approve the proposal for engineering services with Odom Engineering in an amount not to exceed $4,500 and to authorize the town manager to execute necessary documents.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Weber. We have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Kilby seconds. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much, guys. All right, so that brings us to another professional service agreement, this one with NC Hydro Group. This is involving lobbying services that involve, I guess, our electric generating system. So, Ron, this is one of your items here.
Yes, sir. Last year, as you know, House Bill 589 was signed into law. That new law was touted as a energy success story for North Carolina. However, an unintended consequence was that the bill hurt small hydro operators like Lake Lure. It limited our term contracts and also reduced or eliminated the capacity payments. At that time, we joined 17 other small hydro operators trying to either get the new law changed or amended. We were not successful. And so we've been deciding over the last, say, 60 days or so how to proceed. It's been recommended now that we engage a lobbyist to help in those efforts. And the North Carolina Hydro Group is proposing that we use Smith, Moore, and Leatherwood firm. They are from Raleigh, and you might be familiar with them because they also represent us in the Lodge on Lake Lure lawsuit. They would like the small hydro group for us to participate in this. And so you have a motion in front of you to spend an amount not to exceed $600 per month and to transfer roughly for this fiscal year $5,000 from the hydroelectric fund equity to contract services for their lobbying efforts. It's important to note that this is probably a $6,000 to $10,000 expenditure, but for Lake Lure, this could mean a cut of about $100,000 a year in our hydro money. So it's a big deal to us, and we will be meeting with our representatives and letting them know how important that is. Of course, one of the things that we're always cautious about, and the board has to weigh, is that we are up against a very big opponent, and that is Duke Energy. And so there is the potential or possibility that our efforts, even with a lobbyist, will not be successful. So the board should know that going into it. But again, it is a lot of money to us, and it's important for us to work through.
Yeah, I don't like lobbyists. I don't like doing something like that, but I do understand that when you look at losing, $800 to $1 million of revenue, that we got to at least put up a first fight on it.
Yeah.
So I'm in favor of it.
Want to move that?
Yeah. Let's see.
Sound like it.
I'll make the recommended motion to agree to participate in the lobbying efforts of the North Carolina Hydro Group with Smith, Moore, Leatherwood, LLC, in an amount not to exceed $600 per month, and to authorize the town manager to execute the necessary documents. To approve the amendment 213 to transfer $5,000 from the hydroelectric fund equity to contract services for the North Carolina Hydro Group lobbying efforts.
Okay, good. So we put that all into one motion.
Right, I second.
Right, and that makes sense. All right. And Commissioner Weber seconds that. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to the marina boat slip and dock evaluation. This is something that Dean Givens has been working on, right, Dean? And I know he's excited about it, and so am I. I heard a little bit about it today, so.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I guess y'all all do have a copy of this?
We do.
We do.
Okay.
Yep.
Basically, at the, I believe it was December council meeting, I was tasked with looking at other options to build docks around the lake due to the fact that expanding our current marina would run into a fire code issue that would cost us considerably more money to build. I looked over 6 different areas of the lake that could be potential areas that we could build rental docks. And then I laid out parameters, 8 parameters on what these, how we would grade these sites. And in the sheet that looks like this here that you guys have got, on the left side is the parameters I gave it, and then going across to the right gives the site-specific locations. And below that, I gave the total score, an average score, and a weighted score. The marina, the new boardwalk that we're going to build in the marina scored highest out of all of these. We can talk about each individual one if you guys want to, or move through them. But if you look through the document, I give you a summary on my findings, and then I give you a parameter sheet along with how each site scored with a map. In the back of your, the very back of it, the folded out map is where I had arts and crafts time one day and drew you or created you a map of what my idea is for the boardwalk. The new boardwalk would be making kind of an eyelash marina around there that would allow us to have up to about 168 slips. We currently have 84, with 10 of them being used by Lake Lure Tours. So we have 74 rental slips. This would build quite a bit more slips. And on that map also, the parking that I put, which would be in front of the new Lake Lure Tours building restaurant, that would be hourly free parking to access the marina or the restaurant. And also in this picture, I showed moving the boat ramp to the opposite side of the lake to get that traffic away from where this building would be. So this is just concept, just my theory of the way things could work out if we built the docks in this manner.
I like the way you did the report on that, Dean. I commend you on a well-done report, and I like the way you evaluated it.
Thank you. And at this time, we're not asking for any kind of motion, just asking for guidance.
You've done a thorough job researching this, and I appreciate it. And this would involve moving the current dock system, which, and by putting these all out that way, the way shown on the concept, we would avoid the additional cost of the fire suppression system.
Yes, sir.
Which never made sense to me over the water anyway, but.
That was $85,000 for.
But I got it. I understand. The rules are the rules. So the bottom line is we're not going to be able to add the additional docks this year that we originally planned.
Correct.
Because we obviously don't have the space to do it in. Okay. And for the benefit of the audience, the marina building and the restaurant he talked about is a concept. There's nothing that the town has approved, but it was a concept presented to the town a few months ago by the TDA. It's a very nice looking marina concept, but there's a lot of discussion going on still on that. So.
And also to be noted is the docks that are currently out there.
Right.
They are built in such a way that they can be unbolted at different sections, and they can be used in this process.
Got it. Got it. All right.
Dean, I'd also compliment you on your report here. The one observation I have is that this makes a drastic difference in the way our marina and town center is set up, or just from an appearance, just from aesthetics. And I think this is something that if there's any inclination to go in this direction, I think it needs a thorough public vetting. Yes. Because we've had our, we went to great lengths to have all the public input that we had on developing our town center plan, and this wasn't part of it. So it's good to have this information. It's good to put with our planning materials. But at this point, I think that's probably where it needs to be for right now.
Yeah, I agree. I would certainly add it to the mix of things that Shannon has, because it impacts the current concourse concept It even impacts, according to this, the public launch that is there. This
Yes.
would completely block that by this design that's presented.
Well, it'd be moving it, if you look at the
Right,
picture,
it would
it
have
moves
to be
it.
moved somewhere
Yeah.
else.
He's
and
got it
so
in
on.
there.
Yeah, so it all had to be changed over, so.
It seems to me that at the last workshop that we conducted with the consultant, Destination by Design, who's been working on a rework of this, of the boardwalk and all that, this very, what do you call it, eyebrow?
Yeah.
That concept did come up, and the consultant seemed to be very pro this kind of approach for his reasons. So, I mean, we still need to get public input. It changes our whole waterfront appearance and so forth. But it seemed like the consultant felt it was a very good, very good option of what we had. And there were some issues with respect to the docks we did have, the finger piers in front of the restaurant and all that, and the launching of boats right next to that. And this would address a lot of some of the issues that he talked about, right? Am I right with that? Yeah.
Also, in that eyebrow there, when we replace the wood boardwalk, we'll pick up about 40 more parking spaces, which would be right here in front.
Right, that's where that concourse
Right,
concept,
where the
right,
concourse
that's
comes
out
in.
there.
And Destination by Design is working this concept in, and I don't know when our next meeting is. You know when?
I think it's February 28th.
And so they'll be
We
bringing.
just need to mesh all the working parts.
Dean, if I can get a word in edgewise here,
No.
I commend you as well on an excellent job of putting this together. The only concern I see a little bit, from my standpoint, number one is we certainly have to take in boat density consideration if we're adding that many more slips.
Yes, sir.
And number two, the security there, not to say that the situation we have now is secure, but it certainly, in appearance, appears to be much more secure than this would be for the boats that stretched around here like these are stretched. Now, I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but I think security would be something that might have to be addressed in this plan.
Okay, and to address part of that is we do have security cameras at this marina that could be moved to locations that would watch these docks. The police department monitor these cameras 24/7. Plus, we have a DVR that records everything that happens. I think it's 2 weeks worth of recordings.
Right. And do you have, is the fueling system over here where you move the
We'll be moving
launch
it.
to? Would it be over there?
Yes, sir.
Where the
But
launch
next
is?
to the launch ramp. And the boat, and the density is still controlled by how many boat permits we allow to be sold. The people that will be renting these slips are people who already buy boat permits. It's taking them away from having to trailer their boat.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be adding more boats to the lake. We would just be providing parking for those that don't have slips or whatever have you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. Good work. Okay, that brings us to item E, under 9, which is the appointment of a town representative to serve on the Technical Advisory Committee for isothermal RPO. This position, Ron, as I understand it, it's required to be somebody on our council.
That's correct, elected official.
And
Who is there a position, someone in that position now?
Bob Keith.
So
it
sounds like, it sounds like,
Sounds like we know who our new appointment will be.
Sorry I brought this up.
I make the motion that we appoint Mayor Kevin Cooley to the
I'll second
Transportation
that
Advisory
motion.
Committee for the Isothermal Rural Planning.
All in favor?
Yeah, I'll second
Yeah,
that.
all right,
Aye.
write my own name in there. That serves me right for not getting a volunteer.
I'll have a majority vote.
Thank you for stepping up, Mayor.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Another rookie mayor mistake.
Well, aren't you the one that recruited Win Hardy from the audience last time?
I might have been.
Oh, okay.
Hey, back.
Yeah, he called us.
Yeah, he did. He talked to us about that.
All right, well, we have another, item F, we have another appointment to make to the Utilities Board. And this is a member, it's a vacancy that it was created when Steve Miller left our community and no longer could serve on the board. And as I see here, we have a volunteer, David Diorio, who's come forward here. So we do have a warm body. Looks to be well qualified. A submariner, very good naval person. Very
If I
good.
can speak to Mr. Diorio.
Yes.
I have encouraged him to be a part, and that was his wife, obviously, that spoke up. Mr. Diorio is currently still employed and will be for about 2 more months. He keeps telling us, but he is a retired Navy captain of a nuclear submarine, and he also has worked for the Defense Department, has his PhD, and has been an instructor at one of the officer training colleges for a number of years, which he'll be retiring from that at the 1st of May. And he brings, as I have said before, as we see in our community a lot, he brings a wealth of knowledge. He is a certified nuclear engineer, and he will be an asset, as we have in a lot of our other positions. If you look at that utilities board and the people that are on there already, and it's pretty impressive, their backgrounds and all. So
he had, I concur, Commissioner Kilby. He has an impressive resume. But before we do this, our prepared motion is to appoint him to fill Steve Miller's term, which ends December of this year.
Yeah.
And we have 2 vacancies all the way out to 2020. I say grab him while we can.
Yeah.
before he changes mind.
And appoint him to a 2020 position.
I concur.
So.
Okay.
Good catch.
Good catch.
Yeah, we got you. All right, so that's a motion?
Yes.
And a second?
And a second.
By Commissioner Cameron. Any discussion, and if not, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Aye.
We got him until 2020.
Yeah, December 31, 2020.
Yep.
And go Navy, I'm with you.
Jim Walters worked out pretty good,
Well,
didn't he?
Jim Walters is a Navy,
Yeah.
Jim Walters is a Navy captain, and
Yeah.
Ed Dittmer was a Navy captain,
Yep,
so.
we got some things here.
And my father was in the Navy, so.
All right, so I think that kind of we had a G? Did we have a G?
No.
Are we done with them?
Yeah, we got
Yeah, we moved it up to the first spot. remember?
Okay, rather than the
Right.
G. I remember you mentioned in the G. Okay, so that kind of brings us to the end of our regular agenda and to item number 10.
I'll be glad to make a motion that we go into closed session.
Well, there's an addition to that.
There is.
We have to invite 2 people to it.
Oh, okay.
So if you're.
It's not on here.
I know. I was handed. So do you want to go ahead with it?
No, sir, you go
Okay.
right ahead.
All right, make a motion to enter into closed session in accordance with GS 143-318.11 sub A sub 3 for attorney-client privilege or legal claims. Also move to invite Shannon Baldwin and Brad Burton into this closed session.
Those 2?
Yep.
All right, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Kilby seconds that. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed, same sign.
Do we need to bring anything?
Here's what I thought in the paper.
Yeah,
I was thinking that too, Dan,
we have to
anything.
reconvene to adjourn the meeting, just so the public